Welcome back, friends. Welcome back to Solutions Watch. I'm James Corbett of CorbettReport.com with the second edition of Solutions Watch for 2024. And today we're going to have a guest who has been on several times in the past, and I'm sure will be on several times in the future. You might recall in the very last episode of 2023, the year-end summary, I made that call to various podcasters and independent media. Please start something like Solutions Watch. Whatever you call it, whatever you do, focus more on solutions and less on the problems. But if there is any podcaster or article writer or independent media personality that call did not apply to, it is Derrick Broze, the one-man Solutions Watch machine. So let's find out what he's up to these days. Derrick Broze, thanks for joining us again.
Thanks for having me again, James. I appreciate it. Thanks for always staying on the solutions.
It's what it's about, right? What are we doing this for if it isn't for what can we actually do to affect change in the world? And I know that is something that has preoccupied you for basically the entirety of your independent media career, if we can call it that. At any rate, what you do is living and walking the talk. So let's get into what we are here to discuss today, which is something that, again, should probably be familiar to most of the audience, but there are always new people in the audience who may not know about it. We're going to talk about the Greater Reset, not the Great Reset, the Greater Reset, which, for people who don't know, probably the first thing you want to do is just go to the site to find out more about it. It's thegreaterreset.org, and obviously that will be linked in the show notes. But Derrick, for people who haven't heard about this before, let's bring them up to speed with what the Greater Reset is, and let's talk about the Greater Reset 5 manifestation.
Yeah, so just the short version is that in 2020, myself, like many people, heard the World Economic Forum's announcement for the Great Reset, saw Klaus Schwab's book come out, and all that entailed. And personally, I saw online and just amongst other friends in the independent media community, the reality-based community, as you say, a lot of fear. People who are just like, oh my God, this is it. This is the New World Order, lockdowns, COVID, Great Reset, like we're screwed. Oh my God. And towards the end of 2020, myself and John Bush with the Freedom Cell Network, we just started kind of brainstorming about the idea of giving people something else to tune in other than Davos, because the Great Reset announcement was June 2020, but January 2021 was going to be the next World Economic Forum meeting, and they were going to do a big, here's what the Great Reset's all about. And it kind of felt like, well, let's give people something different instead of just for a week watching Klaus Schwab talk and putting out clips and just obsessing over them. Not to say we shouldn't pay attention, of course, but just kind of obsessing over that and not really being proactive in any way, just watching their agenda march forward. Instead of that, why not come together for 5 days and basically at the same time and talk about very similar topics in certain ways, except for, of course, we're coming from a more grassroots, bottom-up, people-powered, decentralized, localized, like all the stuff that you have talked about and I've talked about over the years. Like that's kind of the angle we're coming from. We're talking about how can the people of the world come together. Yes, we recognize the world is filled with problems. Some of the same problems that the World Economic Forum and the UN talk about. They just have a different technocratic top-down solution for it. But we do think there's maybe a need for a, if you want to call it a reset or whatever, but for us to rethink the way that our institutions are working, or if they are working at all, and talk about building new ones, parallel systems, parallel economies, and really talk about practical things. So the whole event, we call it an activation. The Greater Reset Activation is the official name, because we kind of wanted it to be the best parts of a conference. Come here, sit down, listen to people share ideas, ask questions, that whole thing. But also some elements of a festival. There's music, there's comedy shows, there's networking and things going on. It's also very decentralized. There's a whole lineup of workshops. I think we have 40 this year that are all taught by the community. These are not things that we organize. We basically just open the door and say, hey, if you have something to offer, we'll help you coordinate it, find a venue for you in the area next to where we're hosting the main event. And people offer all kinds of things, from practical stuff to how to build a water filter to more kind of, I guess, esoteric, spiritual things, and just a real mix of things. We try to keep it balanced, though, because we want it to be practical. So people who are coming or tuning in online can really go home with tools that they can actually use. And so we launched it January 2021, the Greater Reset Activation. And the idea originally was for John Bush to hold the event in Texas, and I was hosting one in Mexico. And we've done that for the first 4 with live audiences in both places, streaming for free online. We made the stream free because we want this to be a movement that can reach people. And we put out all the talks for free. It's over 150 hours now of solutions-focused talks from all 4 events that we've had that are on our Odyssey channel. And I'm really proud of that because I think it's important. Not to say there's anything wrong with charging or making money or whatever, but for me, this is important that people have this information in this time, and there's no barrier to that. And the other cool thing is for the last 2 events, and we will be doing this year, we've had live Spanish interpreters because I'm based in Mexico. So we got a lot of expats coming here speaking English, but we also want to connect to the locals. We don't want it to just be a expat thing in our own little bubble. We want to connect and integrate with the Mexican community here. So we promote locally. And the Spanish speakers can come show up. They get to check out headsets and hear all the talks live in Spanish. So, you're going to be speaking. Everybody will get to hear you as you speak. And then we get those recordings. So we have a Spanish Odyssey channel as well, where we're uploading all the Spanish talks from Greater Reset 3, 4. I'm just finishing up editing Greater Reset 4, and we will have the same thing for this year's event as well. So I can talk more about the trajectory, but that's pretty much, the bulk of what it is and what our goals are.
Awesome. Well, as I say, people can go to thegreaterreset.org to see the latest about Greater Reset 5, which you have decided to entitle Manifestation. Talk about that title and what people can expect in the coming days. In fact, this just starts a couple days from when we're recording our talk right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, John and I had I think after the first event, when we did the first event, of course, it was the middle of worldwide lockdown. So I was happy that we got 80 people to show up in Mexico, and he got about the same in Austin, Texas. And that was, and this is people coming from Australia, getting away from the scary places, from Canada, from Germany, the places that were really, authoritarian during COVID 1984. And we had 100,000 people tune in the first event. Of course, everybody being locked down probably helped that, viewership. But consistently, we've had 20 plus countries tune in. We'd have 15 countries represented at the in-person events. We knew this is something special. Let's do it again. Let's keep going. People want this. And so we kind of outlined a trajectory, which brings us to this 5th event. The first one was just the Greater Reset activation. Let's kind of get activated. Let's wake up. Let's get moving. The second one we called expansion. How can we expand that and kind of go even deeper with the knowledge? The third one was integration, just kind of integrating the knowledge that we're sharing. And the fourth one focused on co-creation. How are we really going to come together and co-create this parallel society that we want to see and that we think is necessary? And then this 5th one is manifestation. And this is really important to me, and I'm glad I'm having a chance with your audience, James, to kind of dissect it, because I think that word, especially when it's used in the more spiritual, new age, whatever you want to say, kind of woo-woo communities, if you will, I think it gets lost in this airy, it loses its meaning. And to me, manifestation is a word that is very much grounded in reality. It's not I'm going to sit here and pray or meditate and just wait for something to fall in my lap. I do think there's value in those things, but it also requires action. I've been able to manifest all kinds of things in my life that I'm grateful for, but it started with the idea, saying it out loud, kind of telling somebody, hey, I'm going to do this thing. Now I got to hold myself accountable. I actually said it out loud, and then starting to do things. And then, wouldn't you know it, before reality sort of starts to conspire with me to make it happen. That doesn't mean there's no work, there's no effort, there's no energy, but it can happen. And to that point, when we started the Greater Reset activation, I didn't have my land in Mexico. After last year's event, we were able to purchase our land in May 2023. And so the things we're talking about in the different days, mental, spiritual health, permaculture, parallel networks, decentralized technology, and community building tools, whether it's community organizing or how do you buy land and all that sort of stuff. We're actually living these things. Our team is following that trajectory. And the hope is that people who've been tuning in or coming from the first event aren't just coming back to have a good time and party for a few days or whatever. And, there's that side of it too, but who are truly coming to get that knowledge and going home and using it. And I'm grateful to say that people are letting us know, hey, I've bought land since the first Greater Reset. We started homeschooling our kids. We're growing food together. We started a freedom cellar. Whatever the case may be, the people who are truly taking it seriously, they're seeing changes in their life. And it's not because we're doing it for them. We just throw in some ideas out. They're catching them and they're saying, you know what, this matters to me. I care about this Agenda 2030 plan. I see the Great Reset. I don't want to just sit around. I'm not going to just accept Klaus Schwab's vision. So I'm going to take my life back in my own hands. And yeah, it's been really humbling to watch and to see. And so I'm excited for this 5th year, because I think this will be our biggest one in terms of attendance. We're only doing one event this year in Mexico. So everybody from Texas is hopefully coming here. We decided to kind of concentrate our energy. And really, because we had this trajectory, we don't know what's next. We are going to be making a sort of special announcement at the end of the event that is going to be about the evolution of how this event's going to change going forward. So I encourage people to tune in or watch that. There will still be events, but it's going to be evolving. And Also I want to mention that since our third day is dedicated to agorism and parallel networks, we're coming up on the 20th anniversary of Samuel Conkin's death. It'll be February of next month. It'll be the 20th anniversary since he died in 2004. And of course, he didn't live to see his book become, an underground bestseller on the internet and see a lot of the things he talked about, like alternative currencies, crypto, and other things come about. And I'm sure he would have a lot of interesting things to say about what's going on now. So we're going to have, in addition to the whole day sort of being themed around that and all of the speakers, we're going to have like a special, it's about 3-minute long tribute video that we're putting together to kind of honor his work, which really is what I've built my work on. My book, The Freedom Cell Network, The Greater Reset, is all definitely greatly inspired by his ideas of building counter economies, counter systems to the state, not violence, not voting, but building something new.
Yeah. Awesome. And I assume that the changes to the Greater Reset Conference is taking place because you can't think of any more Asian verbs to title these conferences.
Yeah, we ran out.
All right, let's tell them specifically what's happening this year. So it's January 17th to the 21st, correct me if I'm wrong, and tell us about what the different days are going to be themed around and who's going to be speaking.
Yeah, sure. So it starts this Wednesday, January 17th, as you said, and it goes from 10 a.m. U.S. Central Time to 5 p.m. There's an hour and a half break there for lunch when us in person take a break for lunch. And if you're watching at home, you can take a break. And as I mentioned, we know this is a lot of content. It's about, we have 5 hours each day, 25 hours plus some of the evening events, and there's 45 speakers. So that's why we put it out available for free afterwards. So if you don't have the capacity, the time, the energy to watch all 5 days or even a couple of days, it will be available to you. But if you can, I do encourage that. One of the things we're encouraging people to do is look at the different themes. The first day is called Liberate Your Mind, Body, and Soul. The second day, which is Thursday, is called Permaculture and Food Independence. The third day is Agorism and Parallel Networks. Fourth is Take Back Our Tech. And I'm excited about that this year because it's typically focused on just digital technology, like getting off big tech and stuff like that. And we do have some of that. We're talking with Jared Hope, who's the founder of the Status Encrypted Messenger, and he's this company Logos that's doing some really powerful things. But he's pretty much the main one focused on digital technology. This year, we're talking about different types of technology. There's people presenting new forms of what they say, new forms of light that can help you grow your plants faster, and just different ideas that are still under that banner of technology, but not specifically just digital technology as we know it, but still take back that tech and put it into people's hands. And then the fifth and final day is Building Free and Conscious Communities. And that's kind of a broad theme that under that banner, we have everything from people talking about world schooling and peaceful parenting to looking at who was really behind COVID, talking about how to buy land, talking about how to build successful communities by paying attention to teachings of indigenous communities. I mean, there's going to be a whole range of ideas and things here. And honestly, that's what we love about this, James, is because we have people who have spoken at the event who believe that no viruses exist and others who, don't believe that. And we've had people who probably have different opinions on 9/11 and this and that, but we're not focused on those differences. We're trying to focus on the people who are just really doing amazing work in their specific field, even people who you might not have heard of. You've heard of James Corbett, Mark Passio, Catherine Austin Fitts, Carrie Weather, some of these folks that are going to be speaking, but there's other names you've never heard of but are doing just really powerful work that you should hear about and learn about. And so, yeah, those 5 days will be streaming live on our website. It's also probably going to be on the Greater Reset Odyssey. And as I mentioned, we'll try to get it up as quick as possible. And I invite you, if you can, what I was trying to say a moment ago is pick one of those themes. And if you can't watch the whole thing, gather some friends, get your Freedom Cell, your family, whatever you've got, and watch one of the days. Pick the day that you think would be most useful to your community. Maybe it's permaculture. Maybe you're really focused on trying to get more food independent. And watch the talks. Have conversations about them. Like discuss the things that is being shared with you and see how those can apply to you. In fact, this year we're going to kind of have this opening intention setting exercise for everybody in person and everybody listening, which is more practical than it might sound. It's basically just we're going to gather everybody together, whether you're in person or at home, and say, all right, before we start this next 5 days, we're about to overload you with a lot of information. Stop for a moment and ask yourself, what are you intending to get out of this? Like, what are you really here for at home, in person? And what do you want to share? What do you have to offer? And really just reflecting on that. I think that kind of helps us get in that container of this is going to be an amazing, fun experience, but it's also it's time to get some stuff done. It's time for us to take these ideas and the lessons that are being shared and go home back to wherever home is and really get to work, because it's 2024 now. They talk about 2030. Now we're at 6 years. And I don't know what, the next phase is exactly going to look like, but I do plan to host this through 2030 and beyond, because to me, it's like, this is why, this is the whole point, is like, if we can keep bringing people together and motivating them to take action, inspiring other people to do the same, then why not? I'm going to put everything I got into this. This isn't necessarily a profitable event to organize. It's a labor of love, but it's a wonderful experience to bring all these people together. And when we get the emails and the messages of people who say, I came or I watched, and now, I'm doing these great things in my life, and it's coming from all over the world, Jane. We had 15 countries represented this year, 27 countries tuning in. It really is a humbling experience. So, if you're out there and you're feeling black-pilled, which I've noticed a lot of folks are like, oh, great, another conference, people talking, oh, somebody's just trying to make money or whatever. I get it. I've been to those events. I've been invited to some of those events. This isn't that. This isn't a party. This isn't an echo chamber. This isn't a grift, a money grab. This is really trying to motivate people to say, whether you want to be a part of the greater reset or whatever, we need to be focused on what does our 2030 look like. And I'm putting everything I can into it. So.
Well, let me just chip in there. I think that this is probably the conference for people who are interested in Solutions Watch. I think you'll be interested in this conference because essentially all of these different presentations could be its own Solutions Watch episode. Well, here's a bunch of them all packed together. So again, people can go and check out the different days, the different speakers, and at the very least, take a look at what appeals to them personally. And I should clarify, I've already gotten one email about this from somebody who said, oh, my friend's going to the Greater Reset Conference. I told them to say hi to you. I won't be there in person. I'm going to be here in Japan, zooming in virtually. But I will be presenting on how not to build community. Ha ha ha. It will be a funny, entertaining, and hopefully informative presentation. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And there will be many, many, many other speakers there as well. So people, again, just go check it out. thegreaterreset.org. Find what you are interested in. But since you've broached a couple of, actually, pretty much everything that we've talked about before, you talked about the live Spanish interpreters. That's awesome. That's a great asset and a boon. But also, of course, that calls back to our earlier talk about Translate the Truth. You talked about John Bush and the Freedom Cells Network. Well, we've talked about Freedom Cells here on Solutions Watch before. And you talk about building land and finding a place. Well, we've talked about the Conscious Agora before on Solutions Watch. So any updates that you have for the audience about any of those ideas that you are continuing to work on?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, James. And just one note on the Greater Reset. Like James said, he is going to be virtual. Most of our speakers are in person. A few of them are virtual. If you go to the speakers page, it does say who's online and who's in person. So check that out. So in terms of Translate the Truth, I definitely, this is something that I still do feel very passionate about. You're correct that what we're doing here is part of that. Getting my work translated, trying to translate these talks. It's part of that effort. And if anybody's interested, I still do get some emails. I think I actually lost access to the Translate the Truth email that I gave out before, so I'm going to give a new email because some folks are still reaching out. I've got Italian recently, some translations of some of your work. intothelight@protonmail.com is a better email now. So if you would like to participate in the Translate the Truth project, I'll say what I said before. What is always easiest right now is I'm still using the Odyssey platform. We'll see what happens with Odyssey in the long term after stuff they've been facing. But for now, Translate the Truth still based there. So if you upload your translations or video or audio or text, whatever it may be, you can do all that on Odyssey, and that makes it easier for me to just kind of reblog it to the Translate the Truth Odyssey channel. If not, you can send me a file directly and I'll download it and upload it. We have Italian, Spanish, and more growing. I know there's been some Dutch translations of some of my work and some of Konkin's, and I'm still adding some of that up there, so I would be happy to add more. I think this just needs to be an ongoing project, and unfortunately, I haven't had the bandwidth I'd like to really take care of it, but if somebody is interested in taking on a bigger role, I would be happy to share this channel / put some more effort into launching an official website for this project or whatever's needed to make it really be something where we can continue to grow, because I do feel strongly that the more of James's work or my work and other really great documentaries that we get in different languages, the better off we're going to be. So yeah, please reach out for that. And in terms of the Freedom Cell Network, it's we're going into 2024. We did pass 40,000 members on the website in the past year, and it feels like we get a plateau when things get crazy, or this exponential growth, and then kind of like slow and little bumps here and there. And I hate it because it's like people aren't motivated unless the New World Order's in their face. And they kind of, okay, things are going back to normal. But we're still seeing this kind of steady growth. And I know that John Bush, who's also co-founder of the Freedom Cell Network, he's going to announce the Greater Reset during his talk an initiative that he's going to launch to try to get us to onboard and finally pass that 100,000 number, because we think if we can really get to a point of, obviously 100,000 people on a website doesn't mean they're all as active as we need to be, but if you get 100,000 and 10% of them are really organizing their communities and really creating new methods of food distribution or food growing or getting off big tech, we can start to really see big changes. And I think that this is what's going to need to happen. So I expect to see more growth of the Freedom Cell Network this year. We also will be, after the Greater Reset, having our 13th International Freedom Cell Call. And those are totally open to the public. We've been having them since 2016, and we've lately been getting about 400 or 500 people tuning in from, again, just dozens and dozens of countries. We basically do sort of an overview of, here's what Freedom Cells are about, this is what we're working on, and then we open the floor up to anyone around the world who says, hey, this is what we're working on, or I have this question or this concern, and it's just a couple of hours of sharing strategy and tips and ideas, and we record it and we do post it on the Freedom Cell Odyssey channel as well as my channel, The Conscious Resistance. So yeah, look out for that later this year. And then finally, with my land project, The Conscious Agora, we still do have the website, theconsciousagora.com. And as I mentioned, when we last spoke to my partner, Miriam, we were just kind of doing the fundraising, and thank you for that, James, and thanks to everybody who donated through the Corbett Report. We did surpass our goal, and we were able to purchase the land. And now that we're here in Mexico again for the Greater Reset, actually we have all of our crew here for the Greater Reset, so we're going to be visiting the land next week and camping there and starting to get to work. And my goal really is that this year I'm going to start to build my house on our land, and I'm interested in cob, which is similar to adobe for those who know it. I want to build a little cob hobbit house, and I plan to document all of that. And I will continue to do journalism content, but my content is definitely going to shift towards that sort of stuff. The further I get on the land, the more projects I'm doing on the land, I want to be able to document and share that stuff as well. So we will be sharing that information, and we're, again, because we raised money from different contributors, we promised various perks, so we're going to be planting trees in people's names. We're going to be doing a path that has bricks with people's names who donated at different levels and different things like that. So we're really excited. I mean, it honestly feels like this is just the beginning, and for me, it is probably going to be a lifelong journey. So yeah, that's where I'm at, James, with all those, and I appreciate you taking the time to continue to do the Solutions Watch. And I'm going to take you up on the offer I mentioned to you before. I do have a Solutions Watch idea that I'm going to put out very soon. So I encourage people to check that out and get more people pushing solutions into the world.
Awesome. Well, on that note, and yes, I'm very excited that you're going to be documenting the Conscious Agora as it comes together, because I think that it's extremely important for people to see this process and, hey, this actually can happen, and it can come together in the real world. That's always, I think, a good thing to actually demonstrate and show people. On the note of, yes, okay, you're still going to be doing journalism, but it might be changing over the course of this time. But on the note of your journalism, you're still writing for Ryan and Last American Vagabond and various other outlets. Tell us about what you have planned for this year.
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this. I think journalistically, my main focus, first of all, is going to be the fluoride lawsuit is about to resume, the fluoride trial. So once the Greater Reset wraps up at the end of January, the 30th, I'll be flying to San Francisco, where the lawsuit is going to resume. For those who don't know, EPA has been sued since 2016 because fluoride is a neurotoxin, and we know this, and there's been a lot of cover-ups that I've been documenting since 2020. Following along, every little update with this trial, and unfortunately, it hasn't got the coverage that it really deserves, which is to be expected. But to try to avoid that, I'm going in person. They're finally resuming after a 2-year break. This is supposed to be the very end of this lawsuit, and at the end of this 2 weeks, it's scheduled for 2 weeks. It might not take the whole time, but at the end of this period, we're going to find out if this federal judge is going to rule that, yes, the EPA erred by denying this petition and that fluoride is indeed a neurotoxin that lowers IQ in children, or if he's going to go and say, nope, the EPA was right to deny this petition, there's no standing. And we've already had so much explosive information. So now that they're resuming and they're not doing Zoom court anymore, it's actually in person. I'm going to be going to San Francisco, sitting there in the boring courtroom all day and typing up and then getting out and writing up articles and reporting for the Last American Vagabond and for the Conscious Resistance. And I'm excited about that. That's also, I've been behind the scenes negotiating a book publishing deal about the fluoride lawsuit. And so once this ends, I'm going to focus on that. That'll be one of my big projects for the year. And then sort of in the background is also another case that I've been following for a couple years, the Utah Sheriff's investigation into Rich Lyle's child sexual abuse. Their words, not mine. For anybody who's followed me over at TLAV or the Conscious Resistance, I've been following this case. There's been 2 arrests now, and it's pretty dark stuff. This is like I think the closest people are getting to the potential of cults and things in Utah. Utah's got some scary stuff going on. And so I'm staying on that case as well to try to see if there's going to be any justice brought into that. People can find more about that on my website as well. And other than that, I mean, and I'd love for us to have maybe I can interview you about this, James, after, and we can talk about this. But the other big thing, I guess, that's on my horizon is all the various kind of globalist meetings that are happening this year, which, typically happen every year, but this year feels different. And I think you feel the same with not only the World Health Organization pandemic agreement in May, that meeting. We got the G20 and everything before the World Bank's meeting. Obviously, the World Economic Forum is about to meet starting tomorrow. And then later on in September is the Summit of the Future that I've been paying a lot of attention to, the United Nations Summit of the Future, and they're ready to declare this planetary emergency. I just think we're in for a wild ride the second half of the year, and obviously the U.S. election. So probably keeping my eye on all that stuff is probably going to take a lot of energy too.
Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, I think you're exactly right about this. This is going to be one hell of a year. At any rate, you will be there to document it. I will be along for the ride as well. I hope people will be at least keeping their eye on all of these. You are a whirlwind of energy, and so I hope people will keep their eye on the Conscious Resistance and on Last American Vagabond and other outlets where they can find your work to try to keep up with all of this. But for the purposes of today's conversation, the main place you want to go is thegreaterreset.org. Obviously, that will be linked up in the show notes, along with everything else that we've just mentioned. But I think we'll leave it there for today. Derrick Broze, thank you so much for doing this, and I'm looking forward to talking to the Greater Reset coming up in a few days.
Thank you, James. Appreciate you.